Good morning and welcome to Sunday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call, where Dr. Lamba explains Sikhism. The psychological need of anybody, any individual, is to search for somebody that embodies the higher authority. And we often call that authority the ultimate one, the creator. And they're all nebulous ideas, but since the world started, this has been the credo. And everybody, every religion, every human being has thought of God. No, you would say, when I say Guru Nanak's God, they say is one, and Guru Nanak also said there is one God. But then there is a huge difference. The difference between the concept of God and Guru Nanak's concept was much different that of the Abrahamic religions. And that is the state. As a matter of fact, Guru Nanak's God was not the God envisaged. And the Sikh theologian of the Guru's era, Bhai Gurdas, described the innate urge and ill-conceived human solution in Bhai Gurdas War number 8, 46, 11. ਲੱਖ 84 ਜੌਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਨਸ ਜਨਮ ਦੁਰਲਭ ਉਪਾਇਆ ਚਾਰ ਵਰਨ ਚਾਰ ਮਜ਼ਬਾਂ Hindu Musliman ਸਦਾਇਆ. Now he is at that time talking only of the two religions because these were the only two religions as a faith. So he talks of that transmigration of soul. He talks of the four castes of Hindus. But that doesn't mean. And then he talks of the Veds, he talks of Gyan, and he talks of all things. As a matter of fact, when he says out of the numerous life forms evolving from the heart to obtain human being, who invented divisions? God did not. The human creation divided itself into males and the females. Further, this word became a fraudulent display of the illusion of Maya, which is called, and that Maya created Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Hindus now read Vedas and Muslims read Quran, resulting in two different ways to describe Creator. And out of the play of Shiv Shakti, Maya, the intellect of illusions, were propagated the benefit of yoga and other things. And until Guru Nanak, both Abrahamic and non-Abrahamic religions described God as an anthropic identity, the description of the God in the physical human terms, and that they imparted certain imperial majesty to the God. The people of the time at that time think that the anthropic God, through the texts in Vedas, even the Qurans, and the New Testament, and even Quran, they describe a God as such, something empirical, something imperial, and this identity was transferred to the humans, and in return the humans made God in his moral image. So they perceived God as an ideal man. And that's why even Ram is a Maya Purushottam. The God wished humanity to live a life marked by justice, equality, fair dealing, mutual respect, sympathy. Indeed, the children of Abraham, the Semitic consciousness, and the Vedic civilization personalized, rationalized the transcendental deity called God. This personalization and rationalization became, in fact, converted it in a negative way a Frankenstein in reverse, a larger than life, more powerful, but lethal version of themselves. So that was. As such, what happened? Humanity did not hesitate to impart those attributes to God which were varied and individual, communal and national, and practices, ideas, likes, dislikes. So, what was the human feeling at that time? He was married to a woman. So God, he said God must have a woman as well, and that's why all the gods have their partners. And this anthropomorphic God was concocted by the clergy. This clergy created God and make him sit far away in heaven, far away from the human beings. And that was something which Guru Nanak did not like. His concept was much too different. And this Shakti which he created was then transmuted into God. Now this clergy created God, far away from the humanity, a majestic figure, micromanaging human affairs. As they say, well, God is watching everything. And the temples and the churches told us that humans must fear this God. So this loving God became a fearful God. Otherwise, what will happen if you don't fear God? Khuda se daro, would the Muslims would say. Hindus would say the same thing. Khuda ka khauf karo. Why? If God is loving, if God is your father, why be afraid? Because God will dish out punishment, pain, disease, calamities. And after that, again you are going to suffer. How? Go to hell. You will be sent to hell where you will be roasted and burnt alive. So this God had to be searched and venerated. Nobody says you love God. They say you fear God. So God needs appeasement, and how? Through the clergy intermediaries. It was more like a typical Indo-Pakistani police inspector, a cop, fearful, who meted punishment. And then this clergy invented a series of religious institutions which were an advantage to those people. Then Guru Nanak began his mission by alerting people against this clergy-made God. So his concept differs here. He was against the clergy-made God. Instead, he preached God as a virtual reality. And that virtual reality existed in all creation. When he said, Pavan Guru Pani Pita, Mata Dharth Mahat, he was imparting these elements of nature, the godly creator. Thus, Guru Nanak's God is realized through an appreciation of natural designs and flourishes within us and without us, around us. So it's not something living far away on the mountains. The Greeks would say Olympus, and Hindus would say Mount Sumeru, and the Muslims and the Jews would say Mount Arafat. No, he was right inside you, around you. And then he created an icon to depict God. This icon was Ekonkar, one and Om. So Nanak described this God through an icon so that you know it's one, and then he goes on to say. And then the Mool Mantra describes God, and that description is the real description of God. Satnam, Karta Purak, Nirbhav, Nirvair. He is not enemy of anybody. He is not afraid of anybody. Karta Purak, he is the man who creates everything. So the virtual reality manifested in numerous ways through all creations. And then he writes on page 296 of Guru Granth, Anek bhat hoye pasrya Nanak ekonkar. So ekonkar manifests itself in creation in many ways. And nobody till now had talked of God in this nature. He advised that we perceive God and connect with the higher authority to the manifestations of the God. And that's why when he said, Pavan Guru Pali Pita. And after that, Guru Nanak selected some of those virtues to inculcate upon the purpose of life, so that we come to adopt the God-like way of life. Through the practice of these virtues, Guru Nanak brought into metamorphic God. It was a metamorphosis that transformed every human being into a God. The dictionary describes metamorphosis as a change in the form or the nature of a living entity, transforming that entity into an entirely distinct entity by natural and supernatural processes. But when that's done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. And that was what Guru Nanak was doing. And then he writes about it, this appreciation of God. Balihari Gurapane, Devhari Sadvar, Jin Manas te Devte, Kite Karna Lagivar, it's on page 462. I may sacrifice to my God of enlightenment 100 times a day, as my Guru makes angels of the human beings and bypasses all the delaying ploys. He further illustrated the heightened image of the metamorphosis, the Guru Granth. On the page 1399 here is, Lavo hoy lal nadar satgu jai yadhare. So, man is transformed into a gemstone when Guru bestows his vision of spirituality on the man. Now, here's a difference. There the man creates, God creates man, here man is creating God, and they are merging into each other. Loya ho lal nadar satgur jathari. Iron is transformed into a gemstone when the God bestows his vision on the spirituality. And then he said that the only ankar remains to realize what one wishes to see. Bharam chute te ekonkar. All myths have to be left, and then you become God. You touch God, Godhood. You get rid of all impending downs. And that's the spirituality of Ekonkar, which goes on to Satnam, Kartapurak, Nirbhav, Nirvair. Then it's Akal Murat. The figure is the undying. Akal is undying, immortal, Murat, the figure. So relevant to the human life, its interrelationship and in practices, Guru Nanak further highlighted Ekonkar that dwells in human heart for two purposeful purposes. The first is to learn the divine values, and the second is a wisdom-oriented person would be a Godhead. Kaya andar aap alakh na lakhya jaye, page 754. The divine lives within the body. It's invisible and they may not be realized. Kaya andar jag jeevta data vase sabna kare pratpala. The life of the word, the great power divine dwells within the body, on page 754 again. Is the custodian of all. So Guru Nanak's God became a different being. The purpose of stressing was that the God was to lead and his followers towards the goal, and the aim was to realize the Godhead. And then the purpose was to emulate God, copy God, follow God. By how? By living a life that actively expresses divine attributes in everyday expression. And then Guru wrote on page 1270, Gun Grahani Prabride, Nivasi Bhagati Rati Har Khai. The seeker enshrines God within his heart and thereby gathers divine virtues imbued with devotion and achievement. And then he says that a person of God must be like a God. हर जन ऐसा चाहिए जैसा हर ही होए. This humble servant of God should be just like God. So here is the man and the God mixing, becoming one, becoming unified. And that is the revolutionary concept of Guru Nanak. Nobody could have thought, and in these 1,429 pages of sacred scripture, Guru Granth Sahib, they elaborate the teachings of the God and relate to God. However, through the inaugurating verse, the first verse, the Mool Mantra highlights the romantic. Ekam, as I say, repeated 3 times. Ekam Kar, Satnam, Karta Pura, Nirbhav. And then, you see, this concept of God was absolutely different. So, what were those virtues to sum up? The icon translated as God is one, virtual manifesting in all creatures. And then, what are the virtues? Recognize your true eternal identity and become truthful. Cultivate a creative personality. Emit fearless behavior. Consider no one your enemy. Engage in timeless action. Let no one impact anti-morphism. Cultivate the eternal self. Be grateful to eternal. So indeed, these are the attributes of God. And they have to be instilled in the human mind. And they'll convert the humans into God. Now, this sort of a concept of God was absolutely alien to the thought till that time. Till that time, God was either deemed full of sound, fury, anger, casting you in hell, or at times loving, but the love was selective. And that selectivity of love was something which is not a godlike feature. Guru Nanak's God is essentially one person, one virtue. Ek Onkar is one God. And he has all the virtues which are good. But you would nowhere find him angry. You would nowhere find him in a mood to punish and chastise you. You would find him always loving, forgiving, just, fearless, courageous. And then that was further explored by the other gurus. So Guru Nanak's God, or the God as envisaged in Sikhism, is not the result of magnifying human form. No, he is formless. Narankar. He has no akar, he has no form. But all other religions have attributed to him in a form. And that's a difference. So Guru Nanak's God is a virtues personified. And then the difference between the man and the God is eliminated. Every man can become. In other words, the divine spark in each human being. That was Guru Nanak's God. Thank you.